And right, today I'm going to talk to you about a very important issue to me. It's the issue of Scottish independence and kind of specifically the argument that 16 and 17-year-olds should or shouldn't be allowed to vote in the referendum. In my opinion, it's extremely important that 16 and 17-year-olds are allowed to vote in the referendum and also in future elections and all general elections throughout the UK. Not that I want Scotland to be in the UK, but I think it's very important for all 16 and 17-year-olds, no matter where you live. I believe this because 16 and 17-year-olds are just as important as anyone else in society. 16-year-olds can get married, 16-year-olds can go and join the army. 16-year-olds can get married, they can join the army, they can have children, they can, up until very recently, they could contribute a significant amount to the British government through the purchase of tobacco. It's quite loud here actually, there's loads of cars, but I'll go on. 17-year-olds, can drive cars in the UK, so why shouldn't they be allowed to vote? You know, they can contribute to society in many ways. I'm only 15, but when the referendum comes I will be 17, I think. Yeah, I'll be 17, and at the moment I won't be allowed to vote, even though I have a strong opinion and I'm most definitely, mature enough to have a vote. Also, 16 and 17-year-olds are going to be the people who are going to be living in independent Scotland if a yes vote turns out. So why shouldn't they be allowed to decide what happens? Surely 16, 17-year-olds, I don't want to say they have more right to a vote, but their vote will have more substance to it than, I don't know if that's the right word or not, than an 80-year-old, who, would probably vote no because that's just the way they've been brought up with unionist values and they don't like change. That's kind of overgeneralising a wee bit, but that's really how it is. That's nothing against old people, it's just the way they would vote. But they wouldn't be living in independent Scotland for very long, if at all. So why should they be allowed to vote, and people who would be living in it for the next 70 years or so, why should they be denied a vote just because unionists don't want them to have their say? And a lot of unionist people have attacked the SNP and said that they only want 16, 17-year-olds to vote because they would vote yes. Of course, if there's a group of people that can't vote that would vote yes, obviously the SNP are going to want them to be able to vote. But the SNP have actually fought before for 16 and 17-year-olds to be allowed to vote in Scottish elections and general elections. And the ruling government have said no, because I don't know why actually, I'll have to look into that. But it's just kind of ridiculous that people with such strong opinions and obviously who contribute a lot to society are just not allowed to vote, even though pensioners, this is not saying that pensioners don't contribute to society, but they don't contribute as much as young people do to the current so they don't contribute as much as young people do to today, modern-day life, modern-day society. That doesn't mean they haven't in the past, but it just means that why should they... I'm not saying they shouldn't be allowed to vote, because of course they should. But why should they have more of a right to say what's going on? And why should they be allowed to vote for people... Well, I'll scrap that, right? Young people, 16, 17-year-olds, the government do things to them too. Do you know what I mean? The government affect their lives as well. So why should they not be allowed to say who it is that governs them? And it's the same argument in the independence argument. Why shouldn't 16, 17-year-olds be allowed to, say what happens to them in the future? Because this is a massive, massive, massive thing in people's lives, and it shouldn't be in Scottish people's lives, that is, and it shouldn't be dictated to us by people who have no idea, like the Westminster politicians. It should be up to Scotland to decide, and without the SNP getting voted into power, this referendum would never come about. So it should be the SNP who control the referendum and say who gets to vote in it, because at the end of the day it's their referendum. And the SNP are an inclusive party. They would say that everyone should be allowed to vote. Probably not, like little children, but 16, 17-year-olds definitely, because they contribute a lot to society, and they're going to be living in independent Scotland, hopefully. So they should be the ones who are... They have a better reason to vote than older people who wouldn't really be living in independent Scotland. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that old people shouldn't be allowed to vote, because obviously they have contributed a lot to society, but they won't be living in an independent Scotland for very long. That's it. On the whole issue of independence in general, though, I think you should definitely go out and vote yes. Hopefully, you're 14 years old and you will be allowed to go and vote yes. But I just think this is an example of why you should vote yes. The Westminster politicians, the Labour and the Tory governments, they just think that they have this belief that Scottish people, they can do what they want to Scottish people, and we'll just go along with it because, we're not really that important, really. We'll just do what we're told. But I think that's changing. I think Scottish people are becoming more aware that our interests aren't really thought about in the Union. And, why should they be? Because England is a massive country with a lot of people in it, and they're mainly English politicians, so they should be looking out for English people. Scotland is only a country of 5 million people. It's not really that important in the grand scheme of things, but it is to us. Scotland is very important to us, so why shouldn't Scottish people run Scotland? Because we're the people who really care about Scottish people. And I just think that this is a great opportunity we have to start again, to control our own futures, to just be a better nation and a better country, and have a place in the world that we just don't have at the moment. And I think without independence we can't really progress as a nation, because we're not really a nation at all. So please go out and vote yes. Because we need it. And I think the Tories are starting to realise that maybe Scottish people just won't follow along, and they're trying to stop us by any means necessary from getting independence. And I think we should fight against that and go out and vote yes and show them that we can do it ourselves. We don't need them. And I'm not going to say they need us, because I don't think they do. A lot of nationalists say that, oh, England depends on us. Without us, they would be a third world nation and things like that. Obviously, yeah, they probably will be poorer because we contribute a lot. We contribute more than our fair share. But I just think we'd both be better off politically as separate nations, because we'd have governments that have our best interests at heart running us, and hopefully Scotland can become a more democratic, equal nation because of independence. And I think it's just a thing we really need to do to move on as a nation and go out and vote in 2014, and hopefully in 2015 we will all be much better off, and we will have a government that really cares about us in power, and we will all just be more happy people. That was very long and long-winded, as they'd say, but thanks for listening.